3 months into retirement, I found myself sitting in my bathrobe at 2 p.m., staring at the TV, wondering what had happened to my life. I'd dreamed of retirement for 40 years, the freedom, the relaxation, the endless possibilities. Instead, I felt lost, purposeless, and more depressed than I'd ever been while working. But then I discovered something that changed everything. Retirement isn't the end of your productive life. It's the beginning of your most authentic one. Over the next year, I completely redesigned my existence from the ground up, and what I created shocked everyone who knew me, including myself. If you're approaching retirement or already drowning in the emptiness of endless free time, what I'm about to share could save you from years of regret and show you how to build the most fulfilling chapter of your life. Hit that subscribe button for the Milestone Mentor right now, because we're showing you how to turn retirement from an ending into the most exciting beginning you've ever experienced. I spent 42 years as an accountant. 42 years of spreadsheets, tax deadlines, demanding clients, and commutes through rush hour traffic. Every single day I fantasized about retirement. No more alarm clocks, no more stressful deadlines, no more pretending to care about other people's quarterly reports. Just endless freedom to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. My retirement party was exactly what you'd expect. Cake, speeches about my contributions, a gift card, and a gold watch I'd never wear. My coworkers seemed genuinely happy for me. "You've earned this," they said. "Enjoy your freedom." I smiled and agreed, already imagining sleeping in, playing golf, traveling, reading all those books I'd never had time for. The first week was glorious. I slept until 9 a.m. every day. I wore sweatpants constantly. I watched daytime TV without guilt. I felt like I was getting away with something, like I was a kid playing hooky from school. This was what I'd worked my entire life for, the ability to do absolutely nothing without consequences. Week 2 was still pretty good. I played golf twice, started a mystery novel, met a friend for lunch on a Wednesday afternoon, something I'd never been able to do while working. Still felt like vacation. Still felt free. By week 3, cracks started showing. I woke up at 7 a.m. out of habit, then realized I had nowhere to go. The entire day stretched ahead with no structure, no purpose, no reason to get dressed. I turned on the TV at 9 a.m. and realized I was still watching it at 2 p.m., unable to remember what I'd even watched. The house felt smaller. The silence felt louder. Month 2 was when depression set in. Not the kind I recognized at first, just a vague heaviness, a feeling that something was wrong, but I couldn't name what. My wife was still working, so I was alone most days. I'd made no plans because I thought spontaneity was freedom. Instead, I just drifted. Golf lost its appeal when I realized I was playing alone at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday with other aimless retirees who looked as lost as I felt. I tried to explain to my wife how I was feeling. "I thought retirement would feel like freedom, but it feels like I've been erased. Nobody needs me anymore. Nobody's expecting anything from me. I just exist." She tried to be supportive, but didn't really understand. She was still busy with work, still purposeful, still relevant. I was none of those things. Month 3 was my rock bottom, the bathrobe at 2 p.m. moment. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I'd gained 15 pounds. My eyes looked empty. I hadn't done anything meaningful in 3 months. I'd traded purpose for freedom and discovered that freedom without purpose is just emptiness. That's when I knew something had to change. Retirement couldn't be this. Couldn't be waiting to die while pretending to enjoy leisure. There had to be another way. I just had no idea what it was. The turning point came from an unexpected source, my 28-year-old neighbor, Jake. He'd recently quit his corporate job to pursue freelance design work, and he seemed genuinely happy. One Saturday, we were both working in our yards, and I asked him how he stayed motivated without the structure of a traditional job. "I redesigned my life," he said simply. I figured out what actually matters to me, then built my days around that instead of around someone else's priorities. That phrase, redesigned my life, hit me like a lightning bolt. I'd spent 42 years living a life designed by necessity, by obligations, by other people's expectations. Retirement had removed all those external structures, and I'd been left with nothing because I'd never designed anything for myself. That conversation led to research. I started reading about retirement, purpose, and life design. What I discovered shocked me. Retirement depression is incredibly common, but rarely discussed. Studies show that within the first year of retirement, rates of clinical depression increase by 40%. Retirement is often sold as the reward for a lifetime of work, but the reality is that losing your professional identity, daily structure, and sense of purpose is psychologically devastating. But I also discovered something hopeful. People who successfully navigate retirement don't just relax, they redesign. They intentionally create new purposes, new structures, new identities. They treat retirement not as the end of their productive life, but as the beginning of their most authentic one. I realized I'd been approaching retirement all wrong. I'd been trying to fill emptiness with leisure when what I actually needed was to build something meaningful. I made a decision right then. I was going to redesign my entire life from scratch, not tweaking my retirement routine, completely rebuilding my existence around what actually mattered to me. It was terrifying and exhilarating. I had no idea where to start, but anything was better than my bathrobe at 2 p.m. The first step in redesigning my life was conducting what I called the brutal audit, honestly assessing where I was and how I'd gotten there. I bought a journal and spent a week answering difficult questions. What did I actually enjoy about my working life? Not the job itself, but the elements that made me feel good. I realized I'd enjoyed the intellectual challenge, the feeling of competence, the social interaction with colleagues, and the sense that I was useful. None of those things came from accounting specifically. They came from having a role that required skills and connected me to people. What had I been sacrificing for 42 years? Time with family, creative pursuits, physical health, travel, hobbies I'd abandoned, friendships I'd let fade. The list was long and painful to write. What did I actually want from the rest of my life? This was the hardest question. I'd spent so long focused on reaching retirement that I'd never thought about what comes after. What did I actually care about? What would make me feel like my remaining years mattered? What was I avoiding by staying comfortable? This question cut deep. I realized I'd been using retirement as an excuse to avoid growth, challenge, and risk. It was easier to blame emptiness on retirement than to admit I was scared of trying new things and potentially failing. If I had 5 years left to live, what would I regret not doing? This question clarified everything. I'd regret not reconnecting with my adult children more deeply, not traveling with my wife while we were still healthy, not pursuing creative interests I dismissed as impractical, not contributing something meaningful beyond my accounting career, not being brave enough to be fully myself. The audit was brutal because it revealed how passive I'd become. I'd been drifting, waiting for retirement to magically fulfill me, avoiding the hard work of figuring out who I actually wanted to be. But it also gave me clarity. I knew what I wanted to fix. Now, I needed a plan. Next, I did an exercise that changed everything. I designed my ideal day. Not a fantasy vacation day, but a regular Tuesday that would make me feel fulfilled, engaged, and purposeful. I wrote it out in detail. 6:30 a.m. Wake naturally without an alarm, feeling rested. Have coffee while reading something intellectually stimulating, not news, something that makes me think. 7:30 a.m. Exercise, not because I should, but in a way I actually enjoy. Maybe cycling, maybe hiking, something that gets me outside and moving. 9 a.m. Work on a meaningful project. Not busy work, something that requires skill and produces something valuable. Maybe volunteer consulting for nonprofits. Maybe a creative project. Maybe helping others. 12 p.m. Lunch with my wife or a friend. Social connection in the middle of the day, not just evenings. Real conversation, not just small talk. 1:30 p.m. Learning time. Take a class, practice a skill, explore something new. Keep my mind sharp and engaged. 3:30 p.m. Personal project time. Writing, woodworking, photography. Whatever creative outlet I've been neglecting. 6 p.m. Dinner with my wife, followed by quality time together. Not parallel TV watching, actual connection. 9 p.m. Wind down with reading or music. In bed by 10, maintaining a healthy sleep schedule. When I looked at this ideal day, I realized it had nothing to do with endless leisure. My ideal day was structured, purposeful, socially connected, intellectually stimulating, physically active, and creatively fulfilling. It wasn't about doing nothing, it was about doing meaningful things. The contrast with my actual days was stark. I was waking at 7, but not getting dressed until noon. No exercise, no meaningful projects, no social interaction, no learning, no creativity, just TV, golf, and emptiness. No wonder I was depressed. The ideal day became my blueprint. Now I needed to figure out how to actually build it. One of my biggest struggles was losing my professional identity. For 42 years, when someone asked, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm an accountant." It was my entire identity. After retirement, I had no answer. "I'm retired" felt like saying, "I'm nothing." I realized I needed to build a new identity, not based on a job title, but on who I actually was and wanted to be. I made a list of identity statements that felt true. I'm a lifelong learner who's curious about everything. I'm a creative person who's been suppressing that side for decades. I'm someone who adds value by helping others solve problems. I'm an adventurer who's been playing it safe too long. I'm a husband and father who wants to be more present. I'm a healthy person who takes care of his body and mind. These weren't job titles, they were values and characteristics. They couldn't be taken away by retirement because they weren't dependent on employment. This was who I was choosing to be. But identity statements alone weren't enough. I needed to live them. So I created what I called identity projects, specific actions that would prove to myself that these new identities were real. For lifelong learner, enrolled in an online course about something completely outside my field, art history, because I'd always been curious but felt it was impractical. For a creative person, bought a used camera and committed to taking one photo every day for a year, not worrying about quality, just exploring creativity I'd buried. For helper, reached out to a local nonprofit and offered free financial consulting 1 day a week, using my skills in service of something meaningful. For adventurer, planned a backpacking trip with my wife, something that terrified me but that we'd always talked about. For present father, scheduled monthly one-on-one time with each of my adult children, not just seeing them at holidays, really connecting. For healthy person, hired a personal trainer and committed to 3 sessions per week, not because I was vain, but because I wanted my body to be capable of adventures. Each project reinforced my new identity. I wasn't just saying I was these things, I was proving it through action. And if you're watching this thinking about redesigning your own retirement, make sure you subscribe to the Milestone Mentor, because we're showing you exactly how to build a retirement that's fulfilling, purposeful, and authentically yours. And you won't want to miss what comes next. One of retirement's biggest challenges is the complete absence of structure. Without work schedules, meetings, and deadlines, days blur together. Structure isn't the enemy of freedom. It's the framework that makes freedom meaningful. I created what I called my retirement architecture, a flexible but consistent structure that gave shape to my days without making them rigid. Morning routine, non-negotiable. Wake at 6:30, coffee and reading until 7:30. Exercise from 7:30 to 9. Shower and breakfast by 9:30. This routine created momentum and prevented the bathrobe until 2 p.m. disaster. Project time, 4 days per week. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. dedicated to meaningful projects. Monday was volunteer consulting, Tuesday was art history coursework, Thursday was photography projects. Friday was whatever needed attention. 3-hour blocks were enough to feel productive without being overwhelming. Social time, scheduled. Wednesday lunch with friends on a rotating schedule. Sunday brunch with my wife, monthly dinners with each of my kids, annual trip with old college friends. I'd learned that social connection doesn't happen automatically. It requires intention. Learning time. Daily. 1 hour every afternoon dedicated to learning. Sometimes it was online courses, sometimes reading, sometimes practicing new skills. The key was consistency, intellectual engagement every single day. Rest time, guilt-free. Friday afternoons were completely unstructured. Sometimes I read fiction, sometimes I napped, sometimes I did nothing. But it was intentional rest, not default emptiness. Adventure time, monthly. 1 adventure per month, big or small. Could be a day trip to somewhere new, trying a new restaurant, attending a concert, visiting a museum, breaking routine with novelty. This structure gave me the benefits of employment, routine, productivity, social connection, without the downsides. I was busy but not overwhelmed, purposeful but not stressed. The structure was firm enough to prevent drifting but flexible enough to adapt. The transformation was immediate. Within 2 weeks of implementing this structure, I felt like a different person. I had energy again, I looked forward to mornings, I felt useful. The depression lifted not because I was doing less, but because I was doing more of what mattered. Retirement doesn't just affect you, it affects every relationship in your life. My wife and I had been together 38 years, but we'd spent most of that time as busy ships passing in the night. Now suddenly, I was home all the time. She was still working. The dynamic shifted in ways we hadn't anticipated. Initial problems emerged quickly. I'd interrupt her work from home days wanting to chat. She'd come home to find me still in my bathrobe, which frustrated her. I felt she wasn't excited about my newfound freedom. She felt I was becoming a burden. We needed to recalibrate. We had what I call the Retirement Summit, a serious conversation about how our relationship needed to evolve. Key agreements we made. Respect work boundaries. When she was working from home, I treated it like she was at the office. No interruptions unless urgent. This required me to find my own activities during work hours. Quality time without screens. We committed to screen-free dinners and 1 date night per week. Not elaborate dates, just focused time together. Individual pursuits. We each needed independent lives. She needed space from me. I needed friendships and activities that weren't dependent on her. Healthy relationships require autonomy. Shared adventures. We planned quarterly adventures together, trips, experiences, new activities. These gave us things to look forward to and shared memories to build. Honest check-ins. Weekly conversations about how retirement was affecting us. Safe space to voice concerns before they became resentments. The relationship reset extended beyond my wife. I reached out to adult children I'd been emotionally distant from during their childhood. Instead of waiting for them to call, I initiated. Instead of surface conversations, I asked real questions and shared honestly. The relationships deepened immediately. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with. Reaching out felt vulnerable. What if they didn't want to reconnect? But most people were delighted to hear from me. We'd all been busy, all assumed someone else would reach out first. I learned that relationship maintenance requires initiative. I also made new friends through my volunteer work and photography. Friendships based on shared interests and current activities, not just shared history. These new friendships felt vibrant and energizing in ways old friendships sometimes didn't. The relationship reset reminded me that retirement isn't just redesigning your schedule. It's redesigning how you connect with everyone in your life. The most transformative part of my redesign was finding what I call my purpose project, something meaningful that gave my retirement deeper significance than just personal fulfillment. Through my volunteer financial consulting, I met a nonprofit director named Maria, who ran a small organization helping underemployed adults learn financial literacy. Her passion was incredible, but the organization was struggling financially, ironically, because they lacked financial expertise. Maria asked if I'd help them not just with bookkeeping, but with strategic financial planning. She wanted to expand their reach from 50 people per year to 500. I said yes without hesitation. This became my purpose project. Not just volunteering a few hours, deeply investing in something that mattered. I created financial systems, developed fundraising strategies, trained their staff, and helped them apply for grants. Within 6 months, they'd doubled their funding. Within a year, they were on track to help 500 people. But the real impact wasn't just the numbers, it was the stories. Adults who'd never had bank accounts opening their first savings. Single mothers creating budgets that gave them breathing room. Young people avoiding predatory loans because they'd learned about credit. My accounting skills, which had felt meaningless doing corporate taxes, were literally changing lives. The Purpose Project gave retirement meaning beyond my own happiness. I wasn't just staying busy, I was contributing something valuable. That sense of significance was what had been missing from my bathrobe at 2 p.m. existence. Your Purpose Project doesn't need to be world-changing. It just needs to matter to someone beyond yourself. Could be mentoring young people in your former profession. Could be creating something beautiful that brings joy to others. Could be environmental work, animal rescue, community organizing, tutoring, or 1,000 other things. The key is that it uses your skills, connects you to others, and serves something larger than personal leisure. Finding my purpose project answered the question that had haunted me since retirement. Does my life still matter? Yes, absolutely yes, in ways that were more meaningful than my corporate career ever was. 3 months into my retirement redesign, I realized I'd been neglecting something crucial: my physical health. Working in an office for 42 years had left me sedentary, overweight, and treating my body like an inconvenient vehicle for my brain. My health overhaul wasn't about vanity, it was about capability. I wanted a body that could do things, go places, have adventures. I wanted to age actively, not passively deteriorate while watching TV. I hired a personal trainer named Marcus who specialized in training older adults. He didn't treat me like I was fragile. He challenged me while respecting my actual limitations. 3 times per week, we worked on strength, flexibility, and balance. The workouts were hard, but I felt capable in ways I hadn't since my 30s. I also committed to daily movement beyond formal exercise. Morning walks, afternoon hikes, bicycle rides on weekends. Movement became non-negotiable, like brushing my teeth. Nutrition was harder to change than exercise. I'd spent decades eating for convenience and comfort. My wife and I worked with a nutritionist who helped us overhaul our eating without making it miserable. More vegetables, less processed food, reasonable portions. Nothing extreme, just sustainable health. Within 6 months, I'd lost 30 pounds. More importantly, I felt energetic, capable, and strong. My blood pressure normalized. My doctor was shocked at my lab results. Physical health affects everything: mood, energy, cognitive function, confidence. Taking care of my body wasn't vanity, It was respect for the vessel that would carry me through however many years I had left. The health overhaul also included sleep. I'd always been a "I'll sleep when I'm dead" person, averaging 5 to 6 hours nightly. I learned that chronic sleep deprivation accelerates cognitive decline and increases disease risk. I made 7 to 8 hours non-negotiable. The difference in mental clarity and emotional stability was immediate. Physical health became the foundation supporting everything else in my redesigned life. You can't pursue purpose, build relationships, or have adventures if your body can't keep up. It's now been 18 months since I started redesigning my retirement. The transformation is so complete that people who haven't seen me in a while barely recognize me, not just physically, but in how I carry myself, talk, engage with life. My typical day now: wake at 6:30 feeling rested, coffee and reading something intellectually engaging, exercise until 9 o'clock, volunteer consulting or photography projects until 1 o'clock, lunch with my wife or a friend, afternoon learning, currently studying Italian for a trip we're planning, evening project time or social activities, quality time with my wife, in bed by 10 o'clock. Every day has purpose, structure, social connection, intellectual stimulation, physical activity, and creative expression. I'm busier now than when I was working, but it's completely different. I'm busy with things I chose, things that matter, things that make me feel alive. The depression is gone, not managed, gone. I wake up looking forward to the day. I feel vital, engaged, useful. My relationships are deeper. My health is better than it's been in decades. I'm pursuing interests I suppressed for 42 years. I'm contributing something meaningful. I'm genuinely happy in ways I never was during my working years. My purpose project with the nonprofit has expanded. We're now helping 600 people annually, and I'm training volunteers to replicate the program in other cities. My photography has gotten serious. I had my first small gallery showing last month. My relationship with my wife is stronger than ever. My adult children say I'm more present and engaged than I was when they were growing up. But the biggest change is internal. I'm no longer someone whose life is defined by what I used to be. I'm not retired accountant. I'm a photographer, volunteer consultant, lifelong learner, husband, father, and adventurer who happens to no longer have a corporate job. Retirement isn't my identity. It's just one circumstance of a much larger, richer life. The key lessons from redesigning my retirement. Lesson 1. Retirement is a beginning, not an ending. Stop treating it like a long vacation and start treating it like the launch of your most authentic life. Lesson 2. Freedom without purpose is emptiness. Structure, goals, and meaningful work aren't things to escape. They're essentials for human flourishing. Lesson 3. You must be intentional. Good retirement doesn't happen accidentally. You have to design it deliberately. Lesson 4. Identity must evolve. Let go of who you were professionally and build a new identity around who you want to be. Lesson 5. Relationships require redesign too. Every relationship in your life will shift. Address that proactively, not reactively. Lesson 6. Purpose comes from service. The most meaningful retirement involves contributing something beyond yourself. Lesson 7. Health is the foundation. You can't enjoy anything if your body can't participate. Prioritize it. Lesson 8. Keep learning. Mental stagnation accelerates aging. Challenge your brain constantly. Lesson 9. Balance routine and novelty. Structure provides stability. Adventures provide vitality. You need both. Lesson 10. It's never too late to redesign. Whether you're 3 months into retirement or 3 years, you can start rebuilding today. If you're approaching retirement, already retired and struggling, or watching someone you love drift in retirement emptiness, please understand, it doesn't have to be this way. Retirement can be the most fulfilling chapter of your life, but only if you intentionally design it to be. Stop waiting for retirement to fulfill you. Stop treating it like a reward for surviving your working years. Stop accepting emptiness as inevitable. You have agency, capability, and time to build something remarkable. The process I've shared, the brutal audit, ideal day design, identity rebuild, structure creation, relationship reset, purpose project, and health overhaul, isn't complicated. It's just intentional. Most retirees drift because they've never been taught to design their own lives. They've always lived according to someone else's structure. Now's your chance to build your own. Subscribe to the Milestone Mentor right now if you haven't already, because we're building a community of people redesigning their lives after retirement, and we share practical strategies, real stories, and honest conversations every single week. This isn't just about surviving retirement, it's about making it the best chapter of your life. Drop a comment telling me, are you struggling with retirement or approaching it with anxiety? What's your biggest fear or challenge? Let's help each other design retirements that are fulfilling, purposeful, and authentic. You're not alone in this transition, and together we can figure it out. Remember, retirement isn't the end of your productive life. It's the beginning of your most authentic one. The question isn't whether you can redesign your retirement. The question is, will you? I hope my story shows you that the answer can absolutely be yes. Start today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. You'll never feel completely ready. Pick one step from this process and begin. Conduct your brutal audit. Design your ideal day. Choose one identity project. Build one piece of structure. The momentum builds from there. Your redesigned retirement is waiting. It won't build itself, but if you're willing to be intentional, brave, and honest, you can create something extraordinary. I'm living proof, and you can be too. Welcome to the Milestone Mentor community. Welcome to redesigning your life. Welcome to making retirement everything it should be. A fresh start.